All right, let's see here. Move these things around. Inkbox, manga, pencils, inker. Come here. I guess I'll use my mouse. Pencil, inkbox. Alrighty. Manga, inkbox, chisel. I think that'll work. And we'll call that my brush eraser for now. I wonder if I should move these. I think they'll be fine. Okay, so I'm gonna warm up here and play around with some of these for a little bit. Let's see. Get rid of that. Okay. Man, I seem to be having a hard time this morning. Come on. 1, 2. There we go. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. I'm just kind of warming up. I went through the new brushes that, let's see, window, brushes. So all these new brushes that they have in Photoshop in CC 2018. So we talked about this last time, but if you go over to get more brushes, that'll load up this here, and you can download all these Kyle T. Webster Kyle T. Webster brushes. So I downloaded all those, and I just kind of went through them and just grabbed ones that I thought I might use in the interim, that I felt, felt kind of nice. Of course, these are all pencil brushes. I like that one. Inkbox. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I don't know why I'm so cold this morning. Okay. Let's see. Feel like I woke up today and I really wasn't feeling it. I can go through my old projects and see if I can find something that I want to work on. Ooh. And let's see. And what eraser do I have? I want my eraser just to be something else. Window. Brushes. Let's go general. There we go. Okay. Trying to get something, maybe we'll try this one. I don't like how this one doesn't follow the direction. I'll have to try some of these out. All right. Let's see. Greetings to Serbia. I wanted to know if you had some good anatomy books. I got into organic modeling a few months ago, but my anatomy is a bit off. Yeah, I just got some. Do I have Kindle on here? So I get all my anatomy books on the Kindle, and then trying to see if I have, you know what, let's do this. Amazon and your orders. Okay, so anatomy books that I've bought. All of these ones. And also Anatomy Park from the Rick and Morty. And the Anatomy of Motive, Mindhunter. That's another good one. So my favorite one about anatomy is the this FBI's legendary Mindhunter explores the keys to understanding and catching violent criminals. But if you're looking to draw anatomy, let's see what we got. Human Anatomy for Artists. I haven't really gone through these two in a while. I ended up getting them because I have them at school, but I don't have them at home. In fact, none of these. Female Morphology looked interesting. Which ones do I use the most? Anatomy Complete Guide for Artists. These Joseph Shepard ones are pretty good. He's an excellent drawer, but they're kind of, I didn't get too much out of them until much later. Of course, I could say the same thing about Bridgman. Anatomy for Sculptors is pretty good. This Atlas of Human Anatomy for the Artist I bookmark everything in there, so that one's probably my easiest one to go through. And then these animal anatomy ones are pretty good for creature stuff. Yeah, I try to stand up as much as I can. At work, like I said, I think I replied to somebody. I sit down for as long as I can until my butt starts hurting, and then I go ahead and stand up. Let's see, preferences, edit, line curves to the surface, turn that off. And let's go ahead and grab some alpha brushes here. Brush, I think we've got some hard surface alphas here. We'll grab vents. I'll be looking to pull some shapes off of here, just kind of simple shapes. We'll drop the intensity down here. Maybe not that much. And also maybe looking to turn on backface masking. And also let me get rid of those here. There we go. And I suppose we can work on her today. Get this helmet wrapped up, or maybe not wrapped up, but at least started here. I'll load up some inspirational reference in a second if I feel I'm getting not everything I need out of this thing. Let's go ahead and H-polish this back down. See if I can't resolve this a little bit more. Let's see, clip brush here. But I wonder if I can make a list out of this anatomy stuff. Now, I don't know if that was a really glowing review of any of this anatomy stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll sit down and do some anatomy stuff, or kind of go through the different anatomy books and give you my 2 cents on a video. Hey everybody. Let's see, classic human anatomy in motion. Let me look that up. Do I have? Oh, yeah. So that one was this one right here. And there's really a ton of them on here, and you can get them for pretty. The Kindle ones are usually pretty cheap as well. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for showing up. If I miss anything, I'm trying to see if I can get a Nightbot thing for like at PavWork for questions and stuff. But like I said, I'm just trying to warm up today. I don't know why I can't wake up today. I'm having a hard time. Let's see if I can find this one here. Encyclopedia Anatomica. Man, I got some detailed stuff in there. Let's check this one out. Paperback's only $3.55, huh? I might get that one. Nice. Hard surface, if you go to, I mean, there's a ton of hard surface stuff. And hard surface is such a broad topic. Kind of, I mean, I guess anything's a broad topic, really. But an easy place to start is, and I think I replied to, I remember talking about this yesterday. If you go to the playlist here, go to the Intro to ZBrush Part 3 and go through all the Z modeler stuff, and then go through, if you want to do a little bit of the Fusion 360 and ZBrush, you can go to Fusion 360 Quick Start. That's good for hard surface. And then also this Sci-Fi Pistol series goes over a bunch of hard surface techniques. And then, what else? ZBrush 4.8, what's new? Go through that one, because it has a lot of hard surface techniques in it with the new Boolean stuff. And then if you kind of want to loosen up, you can go down here to the concept sketching, and then the ZBrush mech helmet techniques. These are a little bit dated. The ZBrush mech helmet concept sculpt, these are kind of old, but if you're just blocking stuff out, that's basically what we're doing today, is just this concept sketching part. And then past that, I don't separate hard surface from organic sculpting really, because they use a lot of the same techniques. It's just a matter of how you rebuild the surfaces eventually, in my case. It may not be the case for everybody, but for me personally. And you know what? Let's load up some of these brushes too while I'm thinking about it. Kitbash, and we'll go into our, I don't know anything too crazy, so we'll go into thick components here. About the future of character art for games, where do you see it going tech-wise? That's a good question. For me personally, this isn't really going to be an industry thing, but for me personally, my interest isn't so much in the modeling anymore. It's more in the animation, and it's almost like everything else around modeling. I've noticed at work that the things that make the biggest difference, I mean, the model's important, and the textures are certainly important, and the materials are certainly important, and the lighting of all that is certainly important for the look of the model. But where things can come alive is in the animation, and also in previs. So while you're modeling, animating while you're modeling, and adjusting things, putting things into engine, doing a lot of engine stuff is really important. So I'm hoping that those tools become a little bit more accessible to Joe Average modeler, because they're a lot of fun to play around with. And let's go ahead and clip this back. We'll go ahead and clean this up here. And it's also super important, especially when you get into functionality or things like weapon modeling, where things and even, you know, mechs and helmets and all this stuff is, it's important that all these things work together. And you know, especially I guess I keep saying the weapon stuff, but it is, I think for weapons, animation is possibly more important than the model itself. I mean, and also the modeling part is the easy part. It's just technique and just making a model and making sure that it making sure that it's modeled correctly is fairly standard. But if you don't have a cool idea, or if the animations aren't very cool, or the functionality of the weapon's not that cool, it's just kind of a shooter, then that's not really all that exciting. So for me personally, it's going to be on the animation side, and also on the procedural side is also interesting as well. On the vehicle side, vehicles and weapons, and I guess characters too. That's a little bit more of a difficult one, I think, or maybe I don't know. I don't know that for a fact. But on the procedural side, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, which reminds me I need to be doing more Houdini stuff. I kind of got caught up in some other things, so I don't know what this thing's supposed to be. Let's see if we can go grab structural. Let's go back into thin here. Structural components, thin. And let's see if I want to put in maybe a and another thing we can do is, let's go ahead and we can go ahead and wrap things around here, and that might make it a little bit easier, but we need to simplify these shapes quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to append a sphere here, and we're going to go into transparency mode. Way down by her feet. You could do a remesh of just her head, but I don't feel like hiding and showing all those subtools. You could also, I don't have that installed here, you can go to Z Scene Manager. That's a pretty popular thing at work. It's a plugin for ZBrush. And they also have some new plugins for ZBrush if you haven't checked that out yet. Let's see if we have that. These installed at work. I don't know if I installed them at home yet. But if you go down here under Download Center plugins here, they have the Live Boolean Master, Gizmo Swapper, and Dynamesh Master. Dynamesh Master I couldn't get to work for the life of me at work, but I might have to try that again. Since it is fairly useful, I just couldn't get it to work. But basically what I'm doing right now is just getting the basic shape of this helmet here, and I can go ahead and go into our deformations and we'll deflate a little bit. And now with this thing, we can go back to our thin components here, and then we'll try, let's go into brush, modifiers here, and then let's crank that projection strength up maybe to 100. We'll see how that goes. And as it goes around the side, you're going to see it starts doing a little bit of wacky stuff because it doesn't know how to project down to the surface. So that's what you need to kind of watch here. And you can also use the deformations work pretty well. Let's go into transparency mode here. So if you get something And we can go ahead and just take those off. We'll go ahead and split those and maybe keep those around. And we'll go back in here. I'm looking for is something to go down the sides a little bit. And you can piece together a couple of these. And some of these get a little bit busy, obviously. And let's get a straight one. Oh, that one's kind of cool. And let's try, let's see. That'll work. All right, and then we'll also go into our thick components here, and we'll drop in, I don't know, something for that vent back there. That might work. And if we split that off, let's hit W, and I wonder if we can go into, let's go bend curve. Go ahead and accept that, and I guess I can turn any of these things into a wedge shape. That's really all I'm looking for. And if you are going to be scaling, I'd go over here to LSim and turn that on. All right, so now we can go ahead and hide this. And we should have a whole bunch of stuff just kind of piled on her, and we can go through there and kind of play around with some of those shapes. Let's see, Cyclopedia. Let's look that one up here. Oh, okay, I do have this one. At school, we have this one. It's got a ton of illustrations in it. And this one you can usually find for pretty cheap as well. I love if you can make a tutorial about good baking, making game props and everything. I'm trying to think if I have that already. Baking I really don't care about. Same thing, I really don't care about UVs anymore. That's why I like the procedural stuff. Like getting good bakes and hardening your edges is tedious and garbage work. Not my favorite thing in the world to do, obviously. And hopefully that'll be a thing of the past, because that's just really a lot of time wasted in those areas, I feel. I'm trying to think of the prop stuff. There's a ton of stuff on this playlist here, and really anything, like I said, with hard surface and organic. With all these techniques, you can make anything you want to, really. I'm trying to think of anything in particular, but you can go there and check that out. Is it possible to make a morph in ZBrush for DAZ 3D character using photograms or scan data? And if so, how would the workflow go? Possible to make a morph in ZBrush. You can make a morph in ZBrush using the layer system, and there's also, I think, a morph. That's a blend shape thing. You can use layers to morph as long as the vert order doesn't change. As far as using photogrammetry scan data, yeah, if you're going to be morphing it, you're not going to be able to change your vert order, so you'd have to have your scan data baked into a common or a base mesh. I'm not sure exactly how that would go. And also DAZ 3D characters. I don't really know that much about DAZ 3D. Let's see. I know the concept artists use it at the studio. Looks like Poser. Yeah, I don't know. Make a human and pose it, I guess. That's not that difficult. Any exercises used to get used to a graphics tablet faster? I think just like anything else, and getting used to something is just using it a lot. There's a lot of programs that I don't use a lot, and I just kind of am really slow in. Of course, I'm really slow in ZBrush today, so kind of depends. But yeah, use it a lot, and really that's more of a brain thing for me, I think. If I'm really excited to, and it, you know, you can't be excited to work on something every day. A lot of times you just got to sit down and do it. But also brainstorming techniques, I think, is where I start falling apart. Like I need to know what I'm going to be modeling, and that's difficult to do sometimes. So and that's really a little bit more of the harder part on almost anything, is not so much modeling it. That's pretty simple. It's more like, what the hell am I going to model? Let's throw something really complicated back here, because why not? And none of this stuff really matters. I'm not going to sit here and go like, oh, let me, hold on, go ahead and split that off here. Like, oh, perfect. Now I'm just going to use that piece and then go in here and make a little housing for it. These things don't matter at all. These things are basically just dynamesh these shapes, go through here and modify them and change them. These are just kind of idea generation. I don't really care what these shapes are or what they are or where they came from or what they're going to be used for, because I'm going to be doing a lot of pushing and pulling and trying to just get, let's go into Move Acu. We can kind of pull the corners here. Again, this is more about the idea generation and just finding some shapes. And I seem to have a really hard time with the control key on this new keyboard. And we'll go into Damien Standard here. Also seems a little bit louder than what I'm used to. Okay, Mike, wake up. And let's crank up that Z intensity on my clay brush here. Go in here and mask, pull this out a little bit. Alright, so let's move this out of the way. Yeah, I'm going to delete that. And again, let's just go ahead and just dynamesh that down. And we'll go into transparency mode. I'm just going to clip this back. You can also do some just basic insert mesh stuff. So go ahead and delete that. And just use ZModeler. There's also another good way. You don't need to use these complex shapes because they can sometimes get in the way more than they can help. And you can also mix them in with the other stuff you've already have sculpted. Let's go ahead and say, is that buying me anything here? That's kind of cool. I kind of like that. Let's go ahead and inflate this up. Yeah, with these thin meshes, also you might want to look into turning on that backface masking on some of these brushes here. You can start doing some weird stuff if you don't. And we'll get to a point where I'm bored working on this. We'll move on to something else. Let's go ahead and use H-polish. We'll just knock this shape back here. Or you can always clip that shape into place. Let's move. And clip. Let's go ahead and merge these two together. So I'm going to Alt tap this one, hold down Shift, shoot it to the top, and then merge these things down. Clean this up a little bit here. Yeah, for all this scraggly stuff, that was when I used that clip brush. So we can go ahead and inflate this a little bit. If it starts doing this thing, you can drop the resolution down and see if that'll kind of fix where it's trying to like go inside the mesh. And it's finding some really odd stuff here. Let's go way down. Trying to find that. And you can remesh that and then do a project and stuff. But again, these are just super basic shape ideas. They're not anything special. So I'm not really super concerned about the resolution, obviously. There we go. We'll hold down Alt with the H-polish brush. And we can kind of start integrating this piece a little bit here. And then see what's going on with this piece back here. Do I really need all that? Because if this is going to go here, and let's say this can get kind of plugged into here, where these things articulate, does this thing need to have a rotation? You know what, let's go ahead and fill that in. So that rotates along here. That'll have some clearance here. Yeah, good enough. Go ahead and thicken this up a little bit. And we're back to the original shape we started with. All right. Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot of stability issues with ZBrush either. I don't know if that's just my anecdotal evidence or what, but thanks for the kind words, the network. Glad the video's helping out. And my original setup, my workspace setup, wasn't this, wasn't the Threadripper I'm on now. If you want to see the specifics on that, you can go to my hardware workstation setup video here. But I was on a laptop for a long time, just because it was more portable. I still have it, so when I go teach classes and I do demos, I can take my laptop with me. And it's really old. It's not anything special. ZBrush usually runs on pretty much anything. Now, that doesn't mean that you can work on billions and billions of polygons necessarily, but it should be pretty robust. Oh, and speaking of that whole projection strength thing, it was ZBrush guides. So we've done some ZBrush guide stuff in the past, but if you go to zbrushguides.com, there's an organic hard surface modeling, and it's basically kind of basically what we just did, but there's some techniques in here, and it's you know, you do a simplified version of your mesh, and then you use your insert mesh brush to do projection strength. So you can kind of see what the difference is. Here, I can link you guys to this here. And again, there's a ton of techniques. This is just one of many to kind of get you putting these things in here, and also using Booleans and stuff like that. So again, you can use that in conjunction with everything on this playlist here. Excuse me. You know, and definitely check out the ZBrush 4.8, what's new and stuff. Like I said before, I like to keep things pretty loose just as I'm going through and kind of figuring stuff out. And there's probably shouldn't be, but I like to figure things out with shape first and then functionality second. I don't see why you couldn't do both at the same time. If I was a better designer, I probably could. There we go. Let's put this in here. So yeah, right now, let's go ahead and see if we can see her face in there. So if I select where her face is, and then I go into transparency mode, Yeah, so you can still see out. Of course, with sci-fi technology, they don't necessarily have to see through this thing. This could just be a metal plate, you know, and there could just be, you know, oh, here's another thing. If you're ever using your brushes and it wants to snap, it like snaps, see how it kind of wiggles and kind of does that, and then it kind of snaps back to the original thing. Go to your stroke here and go to your lazy snap. So that's when you're using the chisel brush, which you can, let's try the chiseled brush and see if there's anything in here that's worthwhile. And it's a feature. So you can go through here and let's crank that Z intensity down. You can go through here and you can just snap to where your stroke left off. And of course you're going to want to store morph target and all that stuff because these are vector displacement brushes if you want them to be seamless. And you know, go over these things, and you're also going to want to have more resolution. Like this. We've gone over this stuff before. As a ZBrush for what's new. Nothing new here. But that snapping is snapping to the last end of the last stroke that you made, which is useful for some things, not so useful when you're just, you know, going through here and blocking stuff out. So you can turn that lazy snap down to 0 or turn your lazy mouse off, and then you can go through here unmolested if you want. We can also use, you know what, I need to get these basic shapes in here. We can also try out some alphas on this thing. So let's go into our, we got some vents in here. Let's grab some more. And you can also, I mean, make your own alphas as well. I get lazy, but there's a lot of, let's see, like in this military alpha thing here, you can just grab a couple of these things and pop those in. Kind of see how these things play. And the detailing part is something I would leave until a bit later. But we can also start slicing this thing up maybe. Let's see, am I perfectly happy with this stuff? No. Will I ever be? Also no. Let's see if I can go. Let's go into, let's see, brush. Joints, go into these pivot joints here. Also, while you're inserting, so you go, let's see, brush, insert, anything in here. We can go through these machine parts here. So if you wanted to insert something like this, you can also get some interesting stuff. You go into the brush modifier, you go to the strength multiplier, and you can crank that up. And you can mess with that. If your strength multiplier is at 1, obviously you can go over here to Z intensity and knock that down. It'll bring out little flatter shapes. But then if you crank it up to 100, it's only going to go out that far, so you can grab that strength multiplier here and kind of get some interesting stuff going for some of these shapes. And does she need some antennas? And everything's super symmetrical. Let's go ahead and we'll split mass points here. We can hide that one. We'll grab this one. We'll do a quick mirror and weld. Not across local symmetry here. Yeah, we're back where we started. I don't really need that. John Yu, are ZBrush insert multi-mesh parts and other built-in model copyrighted, like if you want to use them in a game or film, or is it free game? Not sure if I wrote that correctly. I always err on the side of not using anything as is. Anything I put on here is going to be complete, like this thing is going to be completely mangled and destroyed by the time I rebuild it. Now I do have some kitbash library pieces of stuff that I've made that I could use wholesale, but I generally just don't. Bolts and stuff, like if you go brush insert industrial parts here, I'm fairly certain you can just use this stuff. Like I don't think, let's see, brush insert industrial parts here. Okay. You know, Phillips head screw. But the more proprietary stuff, and also when you go to your kitbash libraries, they'll be like, oh, you can use this kitbash library for certain things, you can't use it for other stuff. Like I said, I just mangle and destroy every kitbash piece anyways, so it is completely unrecognizable by the time I get done with it as designed. But I will have an upstream and a downstream library where anything that I have made I can use wholesale, but again, unless I'm doing a lot of stuff that's the same model or the same type of model or the same genre, or there are a bunch of characters in the same universe, which I don't do personally at home. I don't. Like at work, we would use a proprietary kitbash library that was made in studio, but if it was made for a certain project, we could only use that kitbash library for certain projects. But I mean, when in doubt, and if you have to ask, probably best not to. And also, if you're going to use a kitbash library and you're just going to put a bunch of Vitality pieces and into a box and shake it around and then render it and be like, I made this. You can use that as a design technique, and it's valid. But also another thing I don't like doing is everything I post online to be like, well, hey, I made this. Oh, but also I didn't make this piece and 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 this piece. I hate doing that shit. So I will do something like this. It's like, okay, I got an interesting shape idea here. I can just merge these things down. I can Dynamesh this stuff together. And let's go ahead and, you know, it's more about shape exploration with my kitbash library. It's not about like, what's the perfect piece I can shove in here that will just work right out of the box. You know, if I'm looking for something interesting in this piece here, I can go through and I can try and just kind of explore these shapes here and go in here, maybe pull this in and pull this out and use H-polish and then rebuild this, or maybe grab Z-modeler and make this thing a little bit tighter. Or if I want to, we can go in here. Let's see, brush. Let's grab this thing here, and I can pull this down the middle. And you know what? Let's go ahead and split this thing. So I'm going to grab this piece here, and we'll go ahead and delete hidden, close holes, and we can go ahead and piece this off here. And let's go ahead and shrink that down. And more often than not, I usually end up melding it with something pre-existing. And again, it's just more about the shape, or just kind of trying to see if I can find something, especially in this stage. And this isn't stuff, this is actually stuff I hate doing during live streams, but I figure I need to get this thing somewhat done-ish, so I can at least, you know, I've been working on this stupid thing forever during the live streams. And now if I was to sit down and just concept sculpt and just kind of, you know, put on some background noise and just kind of go at it and then do a time lapse later, would probably be much, much easier, but I really don't have time to do that anymore these days. So, I don't know. But you can see this is an entirely wasted effort. but maybe not entirely wasted. Because I could still take this, and we can kind of get a layered effect on this thing up here, maybe. I don't know. That's another thing, too, is you can throw this into Photoshop or Painter, Corel Painter. Probably a little premature to throw it into Substance Painter. Let's see, let me close those mirror and weld. And let's turn off X, go ahead and mask this side here, and we'll use clipping. That's another thing, crank up that Z intensity and turn off this lazy radius here. And smooth stronger, these are all things I usually do right at the beginning. There we go. Much better. Clay buildup here we can try. Clay tubes. Oh, you know what? I already had that set up correctly. Anyways, how did you open that object tab? Object tab. This thing? If you have an insert mesh brush, you just hit M. So one thing I use all the time is I go to my primitive brush, custom brush that I made, and then I just go through here, and now I can just open that up. Hey Tom, thanks for showing up. How long has it taken you to learn the anatomy and apply that skill in 3D? Oh, I'm still learning. Anatomy is not one of those things I'm actually going to learn. It's going to be a lifelong process where I'm on my deathbed. I'll be like, you know what? I probably got like 15 or 16% of anatomy down. I have a link where I can turn my alphas into 3D objects. Yeah, that would be under live stream highlights. And somewhere in here, we went through and basically converted a bunch of alphas to 3D objects and then converted those back into mesh, nanomesh, where is all this stuff? Yeah, converting the alphas to multi-alpha brushes here. There you go. And that's basically where we got these brushes. If you do have a bunch of alphas that you want to just use, but they're not 3D models, something like this, all of these things were alphas. You can see over here. But of course, you don't want to go in there and have an alpha brush where you have to import alphas every time. You just want to go through and cycle through these things really quickly. So it's basically converting your alphas to 3D objects and then making those 3D objects into a multi-brush, and then having those multi-brushes convert to. Let's go ahead and crank that intensity up. That's the other thing too, is even when I'm using these alphas, I don't think I would use these alphas as like a final product to be like, okay, now I'm gonna, well, maybe I would go through and do a detail pass where it's like, okay, now I'm gonna drag these alphas out, but usually I need specific alphas. You know, if I'm going through and detailing stuff, I want it to be detailed how I want. So And this stuff is just shape exploration. So it's like, okay, I kind of like that. And then just go back through here and just clean this up. And then maybe go through here and punch. You know, one of those things, let's go into our brushes here. And we'll go to trim hole. Now, this trim hole is camera based, so you can just kind of punch holes based on your camera and kind of sync these things in if you needed to. All sorts of cool stuff you can do with this one. But yeah, you can hold down Alt, you can pull out to a hole. And when we go to split these things up, that's where a lot of fun stuff can happen too. So we're like, okay, you know what? This thing, let's go ahead and merge these things together here. I'll go in here with a trim brush. And let's go back to mask pin. And all these things need to work together too. This is our little neck padding piece here. We can probably drop that down quite a bit. I think she needs it that robust. And you know what? Okay, let's go ahead and I want to play around with this a little bit more. So we're going to slice this thing up just a little bit. You can mask this off and just split that off if you want to, but you can also go in here to your slice curve and we'll turn on groups. And we'll just go ahead and take this piece here. And with groups turned on, when you Dynamesh, you'll just go ahead and split that off into a solid piece like so. So you can go through here and just start splitting this thing. Splitting this thing up so we can go through here, and let's take this piece. And it's not going to do a cross symmetry, but that's okay. We'll fix that in a bit. And I guess we'll go here. And we'll take this piece. So now the pieces I want to save, let's go ahead and do a quick mirror, mirror and weld. And then the pieces I want to keep, we can go ahead and say, you know what, these three, I want to go ahead and split those off. Let's go ahead and, well, before we do that, we'll turn off groups, we'll split hidden. And now when I Dynamesh these things, it'll go ahead and just Dynamesh back together, and now I've got these two pieces I can kind of play with separately. And so now I can take this one here, I can kind of rotate this deck back down around and maybe clear some space out. Looks like she's also getting a little wide in her cheeks here. There we go. The good news is, if ZBrush does crash, you can always get it back. Rarely does it. Sometimes it'll blink out of existence, but it's been a while since it's done that. Let me go ahead and do a recorder here. And also another thing, and this is kind of not great, I'll show you a couple different ways you can kind of clean out your files as you work. My personal favorite, let's go ahead and just grab that recovered Z tool. My personal favorite is comic here. So while you're working, you're going to see I have this UD all up here, delete undo history from all subtools. That's from the Z plugin Z cleanup, clean tool master. You can just kind of clean your tools out. So as you work, you can just hit this delete undo history. Of course, you want your undo history for some of your subtools, but also I've noticed when I split things off and then I come back around to them, I don't know that this particular piece was ever split off. Anyway, if you're splitting stuff off, let's see, preferences, edit, turn on like our service. Sometimes you can just do a quick save. Whoops. Looks like I need to remap my Wacom here. Do a quick save, and then you can go into the last quick save file you have and just load it back up. And of course, that'll clear out your undo history as well, and that makes things a little bit less crashy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway. Cool. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Is there a way to limit how far you can zoom in on an object on the canvas? I have a bad habit of zooming in too close when still blocking things in and trying to add detail. Yeah, like having, that would be an interesting thing too, if you could have a window up here, like your, what window would that be? The info? No. It's actually been so long, I don't even remember what it's called. There's a navigator. Whoops. Yeah, the navigator. So if there was a navigator window you could have open in ZBrush, so while you're working, you could always back out and see, you know, so if we're in here and you're drawing and you're all detailed and stuff, having the ability to kind of see the big picture over here would be interesting. You know what? There is some interesting stuff you can do. I think you can, if you want to just work on silhouette, you can go through here and you can just change everything to a flat color, and you can just work on your silhouette, or you can make that black if you want to. Then you can turn off the lights. Another thing you can do is, I think there's a blur option somewhere in here. I forget, but you can blur everything out if you just want to work on the big details. But you know, the good thing about working in 3D and digitally, I should say, not just necessarily 3D, but also digital 2D, is that you can just immediately back the canvas off, and you can go, okay, let's look at the big picture here, and then we'll go back in and see what's working, what's not working, and you can go through here and, you know, make that black and go, okay, do I like the silhouette? Do I like it from all the angles? That's the other good thing about working in 3D, is you can go, oh, I can judge a silhouette from the front. Oh, you know, I've got some tangencies here, so I'm going to go in and fix this. And then you go to this angle and it's like, oh, that doesn't work, or that doesn't work, or that doesn't work. So if you're constantly working in the round, hopefully you're making good decisions. And also a lot of things that we worry about here, especially on weapons, where it's like, well, let me get that perfect side view of the weapon. And then you make the weapon and then you go put it in the first person view. It's the worst thing you can do. And then go, okay, I guess that's the weapon. I mean, if you're going to make a weapon, the side view is probably the least important part of the weapon as far as just the straight up side view, because, you know, field of view and modifications you're going to have to make, and animation and functionality, it's a nice starting point, I guess, but not all that useful. The only time you'll ever see it in the side view is in the UI, which is, I guess, important. I guess, like the UI icons will be from a side view possibly, and then also in character create or the weapon selection, maybe. But as far as like just using the weapon, it's all about that first person view. And this thing's kind of weird here. Let me see if I can go into just a sphere. You know what? Brush, oh wait. love when I have caps lock on too. That's always helpful. Not. And we go and slice this piece off here. So just like we did before, go through here, we'll slice this off, turn groups on, go and turn groups off, split hidden. And now this one, we can go through here, we can inflate, or we can just go scale here. Morning, everybody. For doing a basic armor mech, would you think manually retopologizing a sphere over a clay sculpted forms and extruding the thickness with ZModeler, just starting from Q cubes, etc., is the best? Whatever gets you the end result. I don't know that there's a best one. And I would also, instead of manually retopologizing, I would check out ZRemesher. I do that a lot. Manually retopologizing is like a last resort, or if I need something very, very specific. Have you ever tried making helmet in Fusion 360? I'd love to see that. I'm interested in trying Fusion for hard surface modeling. I have issues doing curved objects. Yeah, I don't do curved objects in Fusion 360. Yuck. But I do use Fusion 360. And making a helmet in Fusion 360 sounds like a nightmare. But that's just because I'm not very good at Fusion 360. But if you go to the Fusion 360 quick start here, you can see I do go back and forth. If you go down here to video 12, working with imported objects, you can go back and forth with Fusion and ZBrush. So what I would probably do is get an object like to this point, or like this type of object here. You could take this in and import it and then make a really nice cleanup version. But even this might be a little bit trying. I would probably end up just rebuilding these shapes and using the Boolean functionality within ZBrush first, if I could. Usually, and this again, this is just me. This isn't like, if you're a Fusion 360 expert, by all means, like go kill it in Fusion 360. That's fine. For me personally, I'm only going to use Fusion 360 for things that are not necessarily simple, because you can do very complex objects in Fusion 360, but probably not a whole lot of rounded shapes. Like even doing something as simple as this, I could rebuild this in a couple minutes and call it a day, and then crease these things and drop some booleans in there, and that would be it. Remaking this in Fusion 360 would take me, I mean, and you can do the bodies, not the solid bodies, but the oh, what are they called? The patch modeling stuff, and get nice rounded shapes, and then you convert that to a solid body, and then do any sort of trickery you need to do. But for me personally, it's just not a very fast workflow. And also, sometimes it's nice to have, because when I do even, oh, Jesus, this thing still have stroke, lazy snap, thank you. When I'm doing, it's nice to have that low res geometry too if you're rebuilding something and using live booleans, because it's a little less destructive. In Fusion 360, it has a very nice history that you can use, but at the end of the day, the geometry you get out of there is probably going to be just triangulated, just CAD data, which again is not a big deal. You can always go back to the history in Fusion 360, but sometimes it's just nice to have polygons. But that's on a case-by-case basis. And I've been staring at these things for too long. You're gone. There we go. Oh, that's another instance where if you're using not backface masking, it'll get you. So always be ever vigilant on that. What's the best app for coloring? Like for texturing, probably Substance Painter. It's the funnest one, I think. And share how you export opacity maps, metalness out of ZBrush. I don't. It's easier for me to, you know, if you go here, let's see. Well, I guess the most straightforward one is the Substance Painter Quick Start. It's a little bit dated, but you can go through this, and I wouldn't have a metallicity map in ZBrush just because I really don't care in ZBrush. You can kind of do previs stuff if you want to, like, oh, I want this to be metal and I want this to be leather. You can go through here and you can make certain objects appear that way, and you can BPR render it as kind of a previs tactic. But if you want to, like, a roughness metallicity, that would be the last thing I would do in ZBrush. Again, just my opinion. You could paint it and you could export it, but it would be like you would fill it with black and then paint in where you want metallicity. And I like using the procedural tools, which is like edgeware. You can do the same thing in ZBrush. You can like mask by cavity, and you can kind of manually, let's see, mirror and weld, X symmetry. You can kind of manually go through and do some of that. Let's see, I'm tired of working on this guy. Let's go ahead and save. But yeah, using Painter to do all that stuff. You could use Mari too, but again, Painter is kind of has really, really good procedural ways to do things, and yeah, and also you get the live feedback. So if I paint a metallicity map in ZBrush, who knows what it's actually going to look like? In Painter, I know exactly what it's going to look like because I can play with all those channels at the same time: emissive, metallicity, roughness, height, detail, all that stuff. Let's see, Turtle Power. I was doing some stuff. Didn't I have something in here? I don't know. What time is it? All right. We'll get out of here in about 10-15 minutes, I think. Because we can load up Smirky. He's always fun to work on. Also seems like this is a little bit of an older version. Thought we had gotten a little bit farther than that. I also probably need to start reworking the mech armor. All right, initialize ZBrush. Have I worked with the Damn Standard 2 brush yet? Yeah, we loaded that up last time. Do I still have that in here? Edit, make Polymesh 3D, ZBrush, damn standard 2. I don't use it that much. It has it kind of does this, which is exactly not what I want for my Damien standard brush, but it's certainly nice for that type of thing. But yeah, I still stick with the old Damien standard for just cutting in panels, or I mean, really, just crank up Z intensity and just use this if I'm just kind of just blocking stuff in. Not a stickler. Z plugin to assign automatic color to your subtools and polygroups. Yeah, if you have a bunch of different subtools, you can go through and do, assuming it's all broke up, you could, let's see, polygroup. Is there a do visible here? There's probably a million ways to do this. Let's see, subtool master. Clay tool master. I guess we would do clear masks all. And then if I've got a Z, repeat it. Group visible on all. And then you can go to poly paint from polygroups. And then you would do that for all. Do we have that? No. Well, we can go, okay. Let's go grab this top one here. And we'll say record new. And we'll say poly paint from polygroup. And then we will end recording. Poly paint from polygroup. And then do that to all. And there you go. So every single individual subtool now has a material ID that you can bake out. Is there a way to temporarily align a subtool to the world axis, sculpt a bit, and then put it back to its previous position rotation? For that, I'd probably use array mesh. So that way you can sculpt. Let's see. Turn all those off. So for example, actually I think there's a Ask ZBrush. Maybe not. Basically, you can have like 2 shoulder pads out here and be working on the one in the middle. So if we have ZBrush insert, whatever, cube mid, and split mask points. And then if we want to work on this thing in the middle and have it centered across the x-axis, let's go ahead and just do Dynamesh. And then maybe, just maybe, we can go over here to array mesh. And let's go ahead and turn on, hit Y to go into transpose. We'll do, turn all that stuff on. And then we can transpose this thing just to get the offsets. And then we can do another one where we mirror it across the X, and then no matter what you sculpt down here in the middle, it will update up there how it needs to be updated. Now on stage 1, we probably need to add a rotate here, and then wow, it only wants to really rotate in one axis, which isn't all that helpful. But you can go back down to your original here And then if we turn off transpose, you can rotate this thing down. So now as we're sculpting here, let's go ahead and inflate this up. And then we can go in here and use trim. And then we'll go ahead and throw in some cylinders here. And then we'll go ahead and H polish, and then use snake hook. Let's go ahead and turn our gizmo back on here. And then so you can use your array mesh to kind of do that kind of thing. That way you don't have to snap back and forth. You can just sculpt down the middle. You could also, if you are going to be sculpting down the middle, you can turn your transform across the Z symmetry, assuming your shoulder pad is right down the Z, and then sculpt in symmetry across X and Z on your shoulder pad. If we were to do that, let's see, we could just do geometry. What am I looking for here? Maybe it's under subtool, convert. I know it's at the top. Geometry, not array mesh, BPR geo. And then now that we've got this, we can go delete that. So if we are across the Z-axis, we can do mirror and weld across the Z-axis with LSIM turned on. And then we can turn on transform across the X and Z. And now we can sculpt across the X and Z symmetrically on both sides. Cool. All these Z repeated and plugin stuff is going to be under just Google ZBrush downloads. Go to the download center, and then under ZBrush plugins here, you can download those and install those. Cool. See you later, John. What is the best way to make hard surface? That's a tough one. I don't know the best way to do anything, unfortunately. If I knew the best way to do stuff, I wouldn't be streaming right now. I'd be on vacation in some sort of tropical paradise. There's a lot of different ways to do hard surface, but the best way to do hard surface, that almost sounds like a philosophical question. And there probably isn't an answer for that. It's probably, depends on what you're working on, depends on how you like to work. Alrighty, let's see here. Yeah, I'm not liking this thing. And I would say this part is probably the funnest, just not the funnest thing to live stream. Live streaming is nice when I'm doing just instructional stuff or just rebuilding stuff, which I might be doing a lot of coming up soon. Keep your eyes peeled in the new year. We'll see how that goes. But let's see if I can't. Integrate these things a little bit better here. All right, let's see. And that's probably okay. So now let's start thinking in terms of how this stuff's going to work together. Finally. That's where we start breaking this stuff down. Again, I'm keeping it simple. I'm not getting super duper detailed. That'll always come later. Yeah, for some reason live streaming this stuff is always like pulling teeth. But I'm never going to be able to sit down and just do this stuff not live streaming it. Unfortunately, I've come to that realization. I thought maybe I could, but no. I cannot. Not enough time in the day. Because like what I'd like to be doing right now is rebuilding some of this stuff and detailing it out and having a little bit of fun doing that. That workflow is a little bit more straightforward. I've used the Formlab 2. If you did, what's your opinion? I haven't used it. Is that a 3D printer? I keep going back and forth. It's always like, oh, the Formlab 2. And it's like, well, the Formlab 2's been out for how many years? Do I want to wait for the Formlab 3? And 3D printing is one of those things where, just like any technology, I suppose, there's never a good time to jump in on anything. It just seems like it's been around for a while, and I'd hate to grab a Formlab 2 and then have something else come out that's better. And I really don't 3D print all that much, although I guess if I had a 3D printer, I would. And I think I didn't use the MakerBot, but I've had things printed out on me for a MakerBot, and the resolution wasn't that great. A lot of cleanup was involved, which if I was doing a lot of prototyping stuff, probably wouldn't be a big deal. But for the art stuff, where it's just like, okay, I want the maximum resolution, the maximum detail, and just super nice, solid prints. Yeah, it wasn't really cutting it for me. And again, that stuff was kind of old too, that technology. It wasn't like the latest version. But I think I saw them at, where was I at last? SIGGRAPH? And I was close. I was like, oh, I'll buy this Formlab 2. But then I'm like, how much 3D printing do I really do? You know, let's go into that miscellaneous brushes. Oh, I love when that breaks. Let me see. Where the hell is that? It's not Z plugin. Lightbox. Where did I hide Lightbox? I moved the button off there because I don't like having it around, but then I go, maybe it is under, no, it's not under plugin. Man, this morning, Thursday, okay, it's in the holidays. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, what's this Thursday? Next Thursday, I won't be streaming next Thursday or next Tuesday on Pixelogic's channel, unfortunately. But window transform. Oh, I don't know where it is. Awesome. All right. Well, you know what? When in doubt, quick save. Shut it down. I'll load it back up. This will be my last load up here. Do you think doing hard surface on ZBrush is better than doing in 3D Studio Max? Always thought it was worse or at least more difficult. Blend says, I think ZBrush is fast. You don't have to think a lot, but it isn't perfect. 3D Max might have more control, but it's way too slow. And again, that's just a personal preference thing. Some things I will, like if I know exactly what I'm making, then there's a lot of different techniques that I could do in Max, Maya, Moto, Fusion 360, et cetera, et cetera. The hard part isn't making stuff. The hard part isn't learning how to extrude a face, crease an edge, do a Boolean. That stuff's easy. The difficult part is what the hell you're making. And when you're just kind of making stuff, I'm very, like, I'm slow. I mean, you can watch me be slow here. But imagine how slow I would be trying to model this stuff in, there it is. Oh wait, we did a quick save, didn't we? Quick save. If I was trying to figure this stuff out in 3D Studio Max, like box modeling this shit, oh my God. I wouldn't try anything. It wouldn't be, you know, once I have a shape that I really like this thing here, this is easy. To model this is easy. You can use any package you want to. To arrive at the shape is not easy. Or maybe it is. Maybe I'm just need to get better at brainstorming techniques. But yeah, techniques and modeling, that's a personal preference. Especially if you're just modeling from a concept, yeah, use whatever you want. If I'm just exploring, I don't see myself exploring a lot in 3D Studio Max or Maya or Moto. But again, I see people that do, so I don't want to make a blanket statement that's like you can't. It's just that I don't. That would be incredibly tedious and slow for me. I like being able to go in here and do the insert mesh brushes and just drag out alphas and do shape exploration like that. Doing that in Maya, I wouldn't even know how to, like I could do insert mesh libraries in Maya or Moto. I could do the Boolean stuff and all of those. Sculpting and alpha dragging and just clipping and stuff, that's really, really quick and useful. That gets a little bit rougher. I guess you could do that in 3D Coat, but then again, now you're getting into another sculpting program. So really, it kind of depends on what you're making and how much information you have. If you have a concept and you know exactly what you're making, then you just basically look at the shape of what you're trying to make and go, what would be the best technique to break down this shape quickly? And then that's just technique. That's the easy stuff. Well, it's not the easy stuff necessarily. It takes, you got to get good at that to get technique down. But once you have technique down, that's the easy part of the job. What do I want to do back here? Okay, so if she has this thing here, and you know what? I'm not in love with this shape either. And also, as far as like doing hard surface in ZBrush, it's actually fairly easy. There's a lot of different techniques as well. There's a lot of things that I do, even when you get into box modeling stuff like in ZModeler, that's way easier to do in ZBrush than it is in any other program that I've used. Maya, Max, Moto, Fusion 360, if you're doing CAD stuff. This was ZModeler. But again, let's see, auto masking, backface masking. There's also a lot of things that are a lot easier in other programs. So, and that's not to say you can't use them. By all means, use whatever tool is going to get you the job done quicker and easier. For me personally, let me see. Let me grab a sphere. And I'll start breaking this thing up. Let's see, let's go to the side here. And let's go slice this back here. Mirrored well, let's grab these two here. Go ahead and split these apart. And again, once you split, you can do the undo delete history, or you can do a quick save. And we'll go ahead and grab that one here. Do you really get all those shapes by polishing them by hand? So best me how clean your stuff is without the subject model. I can't believe it. Oh no, this isn't. This is just basically form exploration. When I get to the final versions, then yeah, stuff will get rebuilt. This is just kind of playing around with different shapes right now. This again, it's if I knew exactly what I was making, then yeah, I would just start Z modeling or. And you can do clipping stuff as well, but this stuff is not clean. This is just like goopy nonsense stuff. When I go to do this type of thing, that's when I start going into Z Modeler and insert mesh brushes for specific purposes, or rebuilding and creasing and splitting. So, and it is a lot cleaner, but right now I'm not overly concerned with that so much. guess that one should be... All right. So at this point, I would probably go through and start merging stuff down and around and together, and you know, obviously make sure the helmet goes over the face. And then once that's all set up, breaking this thing apart, and then start getting these things to work together a little bit more functionally, and also thinking about, you know, what part is functional, where she would be grabbing stuff. Let me go ahead and fill in this piece here. Smooth, stronger, there we go. And her hand here, so her hand can go up here. Okay, and then, yeah, these things. I guess those can be handles. But again, I'm not overly concerned about, does this thing pivot exactly correctly in here? I can always go through here, and we can go duplicate, and then take this one, and then make that subtractive, and then merge that down. Then re-Dynamesh and just cut that out. So now that I know they do work a little bit better together, or I can go through there and clip that manually. But it doesn't have to be perfect just yet, because if I go through and change it, making this perfect now would just be a waste of time. Because again, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, obviously. See how angular I can get this face. Something like that. Anyway, I think that'll be good enough for now. Let's go ahead and save that again, and just always save iteratively just in case. Let's see. Somebody use Fusion instead of the basics first to start modeling something. Yeah, in the meantime, you can go to the Fusion 360 Quick Start, and that'll walk you through the basics as well. And really, I'd have to go back over the basics myself. It's been a while. Yeah, I didn't really get much done today, but yeah, I mean, Fusion 360 is amazing if you want to just go through and project shapes and then cut those shapes out and then chamfer and bevel and be able to go back through history and Boolean things together and then chamfer between the Booleans. But as far as like concepting this helmet in Fusion 360, I don't even know where it would begin. I guess like the patch modeling stuff we were talking about and including that with the solid bodies, but that seems like that'd be a hassle. Cool. Well, I'm gonna head out. Everybody, thanks for showing up. I won't be here next Thursday. I won't be here next Tuesday. But in the new year, I'm going to see if I can change up the format a little bit, and we'll have a little bit more fun. It's plan for the sculpt. You're going to texture it and bring it to the engine like UE. Yeah. So we'll do probably the high res and then posing and then doing some beauty shots, and then we'll go and yeah, we'll make it, throw it in a painter, texture it up, throw it in Unreal, rig her up, and have her animate around and stuff. Yeah, it'd be a pain to do in Fusion. Again, maybe not for everybody, just for me though. Oh, there it goes. Anyway, see you guys next time. Not next Thursday, but Thursday after. And have, like I said, have a good holiday.